Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Spann Report podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Spann, and this is episode number 84 of the report. Yeah, man, I got a couple good friends of mine, man, a couple married guys here on the show, man, and this is going to be the married men in marriage episode of the Spann Report podcast. I got the homie Rod from the Black Guy Who Tips podcast here with me. Say what's up to the people, fam.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Thank you for having me, Mr. Spann.
Indeed, man, indeed. And I also have my boy Taurus from the Taurus Protection Agency down in Atlanta. Say what's up to the people, fam.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I appreciate you having me, Twan. It's always a pleasure.
Indeed. Indeed, man. Of course, you guys know I got married recently, and these are two dudes that I kind of admire when it comes to their relationship with their wives. And I've always kind of wondered how we as men view marriage and how we're socialized to view marriage. And of course, it would be good to talk to some people who have some experience in that area. But before we get into all of that, I gotta let you guys know how you can get in touch with me here at the Spann Report podcast and let your voice be heard. You can hit me up at the hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave me those voicemail messages. I will play those messages on the show, and of course, I will respond in kind. You can also email the show at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Leave me those emails, and I will read those emails here on the show and respond on the show as well. Chop it up with your man on Twitter and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms, of course, is Mr._Spann. So we can chop it up throughout the week. Leave me a 5-star review on Stitcher and iTunes. Leave me a 5-star review. I will read those iTunes reviews and those Stitcher reviews as long as they're 5 stars. Shout out to my homie Rob for starting that. And also, for all of your Spann Report needs, man, go to thespannreport.com, www.thespannreport.com. All of the episodes are available there. All of the videos associated with the podcast are available there. It's your one-stop shop for everything, the Spann Report. Yeah, man. But, yeah, man, I've been wanting to have this conversation with you guys, man. Of course, Rod has just recently celebrated his 13th wedding anniversary with his wife, Karen. My boy Taurus here is, I think you guys on 14 years now?
14 years and 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks. 14 years and 2 more weeks. I see his wife has been doing the countdown and dropping some knowledge with the countdown to the anniversary, man. So one of the things, like I said, man, I really wanted to do was to talk to some experienced guys about marriage, me being the newlywed, about marriage and everything else. And one of the first questions that I wanted to kind of present to you guys, man, was what was your view of marriage before you met your wife? And I'll have you start, Taurus.
I guess my view is a little different. My wife and I were high school sweethearts, so I've dated my wife since she was 16. We got married when she was 19. To be honest, I really didn't have a view of marriage. Around the time that I got married, I became a Christian, and there were some other things that I wanted to do successfully regarding my religion, and I knew that I needed to be married in order to do that. Of course, my wife and I were in love, and we had actually had our first child already. Mm-hmm. So I think I had a pretty ground level expectation of marriage. I think at that time marriage was just glorified going together or glorified dating to me at that stage.
Okay, what about you, Rod?
Pretty much same story. I've known my wife since I was in 3rd or 4th grade. So, for me, I didn't really have much of a perception of marriage other than my parents, who, I think I learned from them that a lot of good qualities, because they're kind of the opposite attracts sometimes, as far as the mentality. My mom's kind of emotional, not sometimes she could be humorless. My dad is very logical, but he's also pretty stubborn. And watching them attack issues and problems and work through them together is probably where I got all the foundation for what I think a relationship should be. And then I ended up kind of being somebody that both of my parents could kind of talk to about different issues they had in their relationship. So a lot of times I end up seeing things from more than one perspective and trying to problem solve.
Okay, okay. Now, both of you, you've been married. You've been married for quite a while. Both of you, have talked about you meeting your wives at like really early points in your life. Do you think like meeting her at that particular point, like Rodney said, you've known your wife since third or fourth grade. I know Taurus, you met your wife in high school. Like, do you think at that point, like that, like you knew at that particular, like at what point did you know that she was going to be the one that you were going to make that lifetime commitment with? I'll start with you, Rod.
Um, I feel like I knew at an early age, like, but also, know is kind of a loaded word, right? Like, it's not like I knew. I was too young and naive to know anything different. You know what I'm saying? And it was the path that I wanted my life to go down, and I never really was I never like I kind of grew into it. I never really was thinking to myself like this is gonna definitely be the one when I was like 15 and 16. But by nature of being 15 to 16, you don't know shit about the world, so you kind of feel like every relationship is gonna be the one. Everybody thought you was with the one at 15 to 16. It happened to be true for me. But I don't think that there was like a singular moment. I just think we kind of kept growing at the same pace and towards the same goals in life. And that was kind of the thing. And there's just certain things I value in myself and in her that just really clicked, like loyalty and teamwork and compromise and shit like that. So it just kind of worked out that way.
All right. What about you, Taurus?
It's almost the exact same story. When he mentioned that I wanted to see, I wanted to put that sympathy at that point in my life. I knew maybe at the time I was maybe 18 years old. It was a little early. I guess we got married like years later, or a year and a half. But in our cases, it came from lack of a view at that time, and like you said, naivety play a big part in it, but you just can't replace. Those things are kind of timeless. No matter how old you are, you can recognize things like loyalty and teamwork. Sort of same situation as Rod.
I'm sorry, Taurus, man. You were breaking up quite a
Can you hear
bit.
me?
Yeah, you were breaking up quite a bit during
Oh wow,
that.
okay.
All right. Well,
Okay.
okay. Go ahead, Taurus. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying my situation is a lot like Rod's. Due to being naive and young, and not having certain expectations that I think had I been older or more mature would have caused some hesitancy in making that decision. I thank God for being naive at that time because it allowed me to see some characteristics in her that just aren't replaceable. It doesn't matter if you're 10 or 30. You can recognize loyalty and teamwork. You can. Am I still breaking up?
No. You're good. You're good. You know what? It was funny because like some of the people that I've known who have been
Okay.
involved in some of the more long-term marriages, all of them seem to have met their wives when they were young, when they were like in high school or when they were fresh out of college and everything else. And I met my wife when I was like in my early 30s, and we dated off and on before we really got serious about our relationship. And it's funny how that, how you find that in different places, right? So like, say for instance, Rod, you said you guys got married in college, right?
We got married my first year out. Well, both of our first years out of college. So right after we graduated.
Okay. Right. And you know, it's funny because, like, I guess to a certain degree, like that whole the maturity hits us all at different times. Because like I remember when I was in college and I had like committed relationships and I broke them off because I knew I wasn't gonna be shit while I was in college. Like I just knew it, and it's not that I'm proud of those situations, but it was like I know that this girl deserves better than what I'm able to give her at this moment. Let me let her go, and you don't feel good about it, but at the same time, it's like you feel like you're doing the right thing at the time. So that whole dynamic of meeting your wife at 18, 19, or possibly like when you, or like Rod, he says he's known his wife since third or fourth grade. It's just an interesting thing how we find that maturity, or we recognize those relationships and their importance to us at different stages in our lives. Okay, and that was another question I had too, man. It was like, because you guys kind of got married young, was there at any point like any pushback on that decision for you guys to get married? Like, did anybody in your family just kind of say like, "Hey, man, you might be moving a bit too fast for this"? You go ahead, Taurus.
Yeah, I think it came from angles with us. A lot of people said that we were far too fast, and maybe shouldn't get married. We didn't have the ideal financially. We didn't have the ideal maturity. Looking back now that I'm looking, how I would respond as a parent or a grandparent or a sibling, and it's easy to understand now. But in our cases, I think we already knew what we wanted and what we wanted to go after. So I think that's something that you have to take into consideration even when you're talking to young people. You have to look at the character of the young people that you're dealing with.
All right, what's your take on that, Rob?
Yeah, I didn't get any pushback because it was a couple things at work. One, we had been together, for at that point 6-7 years, so it wasn't really new to anybody. Two, like she was living at home with her mom, and her mom was just, for some reason, she just started tripping. Like, I don't even know what it was to this day. I'll never really know why she was tripping that way, but she was just really tripping on her about, like getting a certain, like, because at the time she was working as a waitress, she had just got out of college. She really hadn't had a chance to apply for some, bigger jobs, and she was applying while also working a full-time job as a waitress. And her mom was just like really on her ass on some, like, just being really demeaning. And I don't know if it was like she wanted her to pay rent or something, which to me was reasonable. But then, whenever she offered up that solution, her mom would just get even more of an attitude. So it just, it was a lot of pressure. She wasn't happy at home. And, I was like, look, I got a job, we can move into this apartment together. And, and the thing was, we already had gotten engaged in school. My wife's very practical. She never really cared or wanted like a big wedding and stuff. So we just went to the Justice of Peace with our parents and, did the thing and went out to McCormick and Smith's and ate dinner and moved all our stuff into the apartment. And, that's how it went down. So it's like the people that might have felt some kind of way about us getting married so early they either were comforted by the fact we've been together so long, or they just were like, you can't be the person pushing somebody out of the nest and then be like, I can't believe you went and got married. Like, what the fuck? You didn't want her to stay at home, so what was we supposed to do? And then I know she would have been on some like, y'all living in sin if we would have been moving in together. So it's like, we had to do what we had to do, man.
Yeah, I hear you, man. But you know what? That was another interesting thing too, is because one of the things that I would always hear, especially like just talking amongst like guys at work and everything, was the whole thing of like living together, right? Because me and my wife, we were living together before we got married. And a lot of folks were looking at it like, well, once you get married, things are going to change, man. Like, it's going to change. And honestly, it didn't seem so much of a change to me because it seemed like it was just, to me, it was more so like it was just making things official. We were already living as a married couple, but we were just making things officially in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of God and everything else. But it was odd to me, like the way that folks looked at it, as if there was going to be this really dramatic change as to how our relationship would function. And so, like, it was funny that you would mention that folks were like, yo, you can't be living in sin, when actually I would have preferred that we lived together beforehand anyway, because I kind of want to know what it is I'm going to be dealing with.
Yeah.
As it's going to be my wife, I kind of want to know.
Yeah,
I don't want to go into the whole
line. No, because it's like
Well,
nobody else's business, right? Like, nobody else lives there, and nobody should be trying to tell you what to do and how to do it. There's a lot of different ways to make a relationship work, and I don't think, like, if my wife and I would have lived together before we got married, I don't think it really would have changed anything. This is just the way it worked out, and at the end of the day, relationships are just about whether or not you can work it out.
Well, I have to take the opposite on that, guys. I've seen and I've talked to multiple people that if they got married, and then see that those things do change regardless of how strong or how well you know a person in the establishment. I kind of attribute that to no doubt a spiritual thing, and there's going to be some change. Whether or not it'll be the people warned you about it or whatever, those that's just kind of up in the air. But and then you got to remember there's some relationships that were strong until people moved in together, and that prevented them from getting married. Living together kind of prevented people that one.
Uh-oh.
What happened?
What happened?
I don't know. You just Taurus, you were kind of breaking up a tad bit during that exchange. But I think I got the gist of it when you're talking about the changes that kind of come with the growth of the marriage and living together, and some people living together kind of prevented them from getting married. But even still, to me, that kind of reinforces my point as to whether or not, if I was going to go further in this relationship with my wife, that before I was to get married to her, I kind of would want to know how she functions on the day-to-day, whether or not this is somebody that I can live with for the rest of my life. I kind of want to have that heads up before I guess you could say, sign the dotted line, as you saw me do, right? So to me, it was just like, I had no objections at all. As a matter of fact, I preferred that we would have lived together to find out whether or not, hey, is this the person for me, before, just not having that situation where we're living together. We don't really know much about each other other than, we go out on dates a few times a week, or we talk on the phone a whole lot, or we do things that couples do, but, we live in two separate lives, and then when we bring these lives together and we find out that after we've already signed these papers that our lives aren't compatible in the least, because I like things a certain way and she likes things another way, and they're clashing really hard. And I just kind of feel like living together beforehand, you kind of hash a lot of those things out and you iron a lot of those things out, and you're not surprised when this happens or when that happens, and you just kind of learn to live with this person. So another thing too, man, because I know you guys have been married for a while.
Hey, hold on. Hey, I did want to add one thing, Spann.
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
Also, man, I think a lot of people aren't really marrying or getting in long-term relationships with the person they think they are until they get, like, a lot of times the changes happen because you didn't really get to know them in the first place. Like, it does, like, there's no replacement for time, right? I feel like the older we get, the more we see money become a replacement for time. Like, spend this much money on a date, spend this much money on a ring, spend this much money on a wedding, and that'll mean that you love somebody. But then you find out, like, you don't really know that person sometimes. And a lot of times that's why the other shoe drops on these relationships, because, you know, yeah, they did they checked all the boxes off, but there's no replacement for just getting to know a person. So while my wife and I didn't live together before we got married, we had, you know, known each other for like 8 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, we had gone through college together. We had moved together. We had, you know, traveled and did the long distance thing together. We had lived up the street from each other. Like, we had done a lot before we made that leap. And then I think that counts for something. But, you know, there's a bunch of different paths to get to the same goal.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I've talked to several couples that that, you know, lived together before they were married, and they said that, you know, that they wish they hadn't. So it's all gonna boil down to an individual basis and what works out for certain types of attitudes and characters in each individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, like, you know, the way that we did it was the blueprint on how to do it, because, like, again, this is still early in the game, right? But I just know that, you know, just how I operate personally, and I think even for her, not that I want to speak for her, but, you know, I think that this time living together kind of gave us a bit more of an insight as to who we were going to be with, and I don't see any downside in doing so. Another question too that I had, man, because again, like, you guys have been married for a while. Do you guys ever have, like, this pressure from outside sources, right, to be together because everybody loves you guys together? You go ahead, Rod.
Said oh, go ahead, Taurus.
I'll say for me, yeah, given the fact that doing a lot of changes that we weren't prepared for, some days being young and a little immature sometimes, some days those are the things that actually is the responsibility we held when we know other people are watching us, when we know that other people look up to us, and also who we set ourselves out to be as human beings. So there are days when those kind of things have saved us. Just kind of remembering the fact that we won't let this petty thing affect us like that, because we know that we would tell other people, you know, not to let that thing affect them. So sometimes being a pillar has kind of helped us, and then there are other things that shine on us that weren't so favorable that everybody will go through, and then you receive the criticism for that, as if you're not like everybody else. So it's catch-22 with that, but yeah.
All right, you were going to say something?
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say, you're saying? How do we adapt to being viewed, like, together?
Well, no, I mean, like, have you ever felt like pressure from outside sources? You know, because say for instance, like, everybody kind of looks at you like you're their favorite couple. Like, man, you guys give me hope for, you know, for black love, and, you know, you guys are like my Martin and Gina and all that other stuff. Like, do you guys ever feel pressure in that way from outside sources?
Oh yeah, I do not feel any pressure, because none of those people have to live my relationship, and a lot of the stuff that we do is very much outside of the box for other people. And the only thing I ask is that they don't judge me the way that I don't judge them, because it's not like our relationship is hurting anybody, but we do things, the things that make us happy. Like, we don't have a house because we didn't want to buy a house. You know, we like the ability to kind of get up and move if shit goes down in the neighborhood, and we just like, I don't like this place no more. You know, we decided not to have children. You know, that's like, these are decisions that a lot of people put pressure on you for, but they're not living your life, and they don't know how those decisions will make you happy or not happy. And it seems like society kind of puts pressure on us to do a bunch of stuff. And I think anybody that's been in a long-term relationship will tell you certain things might not, quote unquote, look good, but if that's what makes both of y'all happy, that's the only thing that matters. So while, you know, a blogger might say, your woman shouldn't have to come home and cook a meal every night. If your woman want to come home and cook a meal every night, and you find sitting down at the table eating and then doing the dishes after, that's it. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what anyone thinks outside of that. So, I think the pressure to conform is, is something that you just get used to ignoring. At least if you're trying to be happy, you got to get used to it.
All right, Taurus, did you have anything to add to that, bro?
No. I just like the fact that everything that people can deal with in all relationships is diverse, because you're not marrying the perfect person, and most times you're not marrying a person that's a lot like you. So the response should always be diverse between people on what's successful.
Yeah. Also, man, you're not even marrying the person that you're gonna be. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you get, like, that's one of the things I think one of the myths that needs to stop about relationships is, like, you are gonna change. It's about changing together, and compromising and working things through, and because that's what life is constantly change. And I think in our society, we act like getting the wedding is the end of the process. Like, well, they got a wedding and that means happily ever after, and that's just, it's such a fallacy, man, and people fall into it all the time. There's so many people I know that got divorced within a year or two just because they didn't really have a plan beyond, we're going to get married, and then after that it's like, oh wait, I don't want to do any of this other stuff. You gonna be here every day? I didn't like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we always talk about that too. Is that we had our wedding rings for like $50. I got mine from the pawn shop, and she got hers from Evergreen Plaza. So
Yeah.
and, we know people who we had people who had $10,000 and $15,000 weddings and $10,000 rings, and was divorced in a year and a half, and sometimes it was behind, trying to pay for their wedding, the stress
Yep.
of paying for the wedding,
Yep.
and we look back at that and we're like, simple does it, at least for us.
Yeah, financial reasons are the number one reason for divorce. Like, a lot of people, like, they plan for these other pitfalls, which I'm not saying is, obviously you don't want to be cheating, you don't want to abuse, anything like that. But a lot of the stuff that you plan for is not the stuff that happens. It's somebody, I had a $25,000 wedding and now I got to make 75 payments to pay off this wedding. Like, can we be together for 75 payments of something? Because that's the kind of stuff that matters, man.
Yeah. Look at Spann. Can I address something that Rod said? I want to address something you said, Rod, is about you're not even marrying the person that you're going to be. You have to look at, when I got married, I was 20 years old, and Takia was either 18 or 19. She was 19, I believe. I've changed once or twice. She's probably changed 23 times in the last 15 years.
Right.
And you're marrying that person, and you're marrying them through that change. And that's something that a lot of people aren't prepared for, because a lot of people view marriage as a lifelong commitment, but they're marrying what they like about the moment, as opposed to not realizing you're going to inherit the change. You're going to inherit the differences. You're going to inherit the changing of my mind. I used to like roses, now I like tulips. And it's like, okay, I wasn't prepared to pick up tulips. But, if I want this thing to work, it's tulips it is, right?
Yep. I heard, I remember whenever I hear dudes say stuff like, if I marry my woman at 98 pounds, she better be 98 pounds for the rest of her life. And I'm just thinking, like, man, maybe you might not want to make that move then, man. Like, that's, you know what I'm saying? That's like 1% of people that say the same weight they whole damn life. Like, it's you're going to have babies, you're going to do a bunch of stuff. You expecting her to work a job possibly. Like you expecting a lot out of a person to maintain this one feature about this person. Meanwhile, they might not can't stand the girl. Like, you know what I mean? Y'all, every time I see y'all arguing. So it's little stuff like that where I'm like, I feel like at certain ages, you think you know what you want, you think you know what's best, but a lot of it's kind of luck and a lot of it's hard work. And like, you gotta grow together. Cause like I said, at 30, I don't want the same things I wanted at 22. And at 36, I definitely don't want the same things I wanted at 30.
Yeah, you know what, I say that all the time. Even just how I look at life, period. You know, I know there are things that I looked at 30 that I don't look at the same way at 35. I just don't. Like there's a lot of different things that kind of happen, and you get to see a lot of different things in life, and you're just like, well, you know what? I don't know if I really subscribe to that anymore. And even with it's funny, like, because when I met my wife, she was 23. We got a 6-year age difference between us. When I met my wife, she was 23. I was 30. You know, like and I was in a different space. She was in a different space. That's why I said we dated off and on before we even got really serious, because, you know, where I was at, she wasn't ready for where I was at then. And it took a while before we got to a point where we were on pretty much the same page and we were looking at things similarly, where we wanted to move forward in this, you know, in this way to where we can, you know, get to a point where we could live together and then go ahead and make it official and go ahead and get married, man. So yeah, man, looking at life, just the changes in life, period. That's one thing that I don't think a lot of folks necessarily are ready for. They're ready for that moment that, well, we can take these pictures and we can get this photo album and we can have this party, but at the end of the day, once all of that is done, you still got to go about the regular business of living your life. And I think to some degree, some folks don't necessarily understand that all the way. Another thing too, man. What was like one of the biggest things that you learned about yourself after you got married? You can go ahead, Taurus.
The biggest thing I learned about myself, I think marriage really exposed to me. There was a situation right before I got married that kind of helped me with that. That kind of pushed me into manhood. But marriage really exposed to me a lot of irresponsibilities about myself. You know, as you know, we had a lot of young, and there were just a lot of things that I didn't care about enough to be responsible for. I've always, of course, even from tonight, I've always struggled with time management and organization. Always, my whole life, I've always struggled with that. And marriage has actually put a mandate on that for that to get better. And for a long time, I just really didn't pay enough attention to it, But I think marriage exposed a lot of irresponsibilities about myself.
You got Spann?
Okay, yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, all right, yeah, all right. For me, man, I would say that the main thing I learned was just how off the beaten path I was from a lot of other people, because before I got married, like most of the married men that I knew that were older than me, especially married black men, were really down in the institution of marriage. And like, the dudes I worked with, they were really on some like, they were telling me I didn't know what I was talking about, because they were like, I played on, like, for example, I played on this basketball team with the guys I work with, and it was mostly older black men. I was like 23, and they were mostly, 30s and 40s. And they used to do this thing where they would bring, like, if the game was before like 7, they would bring their families. But if the game was like after 8, they would bring like these hoes, like women, like just like side chicks. And I, and the thing was, a couple times, they kind of ran into some situations where like their wife or their family was coming up there, or maybe they suspected something, so they were gonna check on them, and they would come up to me and be like, "Hey man, can you just tell them that this girl is with you?" And I'm like, "No, like I'm not involved in this at all. I don't know you like that, and I don't want no problems with your wife. Like that's your relationship." But I remember when I said that, a dude told me straight up, like a couple of them actually was like, "Oh, you just don't know what you're talking about. You gonna be doing this too when you get our age. You think you in love now?" Because I was engaged at the time, and I was like, "Man, look, I can only speak for what I know now, and I just wouldn't see myself doing that, and I definitely wouldn't see myself embarrassing my wife out here like that, because everybody know what y'all doing. You know what I'm saying?" And they kind of ganged up on me. And I just remember thinking like, yo, I can't see myself becoming like them. You know what I mean? And they were putting it on their wives, like, the women change, man. They just change, and then you got to do what you got to do. I was like, man, I don't know. It just seemed fucked up. That's all I know. So For me personally, I just, I think I learned that I just was gonna have to. It was gonna kind of be a lonely path to be like, no, I'm married. I'm happily married. I love my wife, and I don't have anything bad to say about it. Like it's been a great experience, and I don't want to, I wouldn't be out here talking bad about her and then going back and being happy at home, because that seems fucked up too. So for me, it was just kind of like, I guess I wasn't gonna have a lot of peers, in my situation.
All right, Taurus, you had anything to add to that, bro?
No. But one of the things that I around 25 I started saying something that I noticed. At 25, I guess I was married about 5 years, and I started saying, me as a person, I don't do well without responsibility. So if I had not gotten married young, I don't think that my life would have went in the direction that it did, because I can only do well when I have a lot of responsibility.
Mm. Well, that's interesting. Like, cause um, I don't know. It's one of those things, man, to where like I know me. I'm just gonna go off like my little experience, man. I know when I was 25, man, like I had just got out of a relationship with my daughter's mom, and there was a responsibility of my daughter, but at the same time it was, I'm free, right? So like I was dating women and stuff like that, and I was meeting people, and I was just kind of out here on the bachelor thing. But after a while, that shit got tired. You know what I mean? Like it just it wasn't as appealing as folks make it out to be. Like even the whole thing of being single in your mid to late 20s is like it wasn't as appealing as a whole lot of guys would make it out to be. And it's funny that you guys talk about the change that comes, because I remember before I even got married, some of my coworkers were talking about, hey man, it's gonna be a change that's coming and you don't know it. And it's like, dude, we've been living like this for 2 years. We've been living like this for 2 years already. Like, I don't anticipate this epic change that you guys are talking about, because we're already pretty much kind of there already, right? So the
Hmm.
the next question I kind of had for you guys was, why do you guys think that there is this common misconception, or this common um, thought with men that have like this negative view about being married? Where does that come from, and why are we socialized to believe that marriage is a bad thing for us? You can go ahead, Rod.
Okay. I feel like what happens is that society conditions men to see relationships as a box and something that you're giving up. Like, it's like for women it's validation. Like, how many times you see in an argument with two women and it ends with, well, that's why you ain't got no man, or you can't even keep a man, or like, we don't, like, men, we just, in society, the pressure that we experience is just totally different, where we don't get in this, like, we don't get a situation where it's like you can't keep a woman, and then we go, oh man, my pride is hurt, he hurt my feelings because he said I get too many women. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a totally different feeling. So for men, I think we always get the, what did you have to give up when you got married? Well, I was going to the club, I was getting all these women, I was just doing what I want. And what's funny is, if you know a lot of single dudes, most of the time it's not even like that. Like, it's not even like they got a whole lot of women or a whole lot of money, or they be up wherever all the time. Like, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's mostly about, like, for the people that's about to get married in that range, it's mostly boring shit too. Like, it's mostly the same. Like, I like going to the movies and watching what I want on Netflix and hang around in my drawers. And I'm like, I do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just depends on the person that you match with, and and being honest about the things that you want out of life and whatnot. But I feel like a lot of society just feels like men need to, or have to be tricked into marriage, and it's about what woman can trick you the best, to get you trapped into this situation. And it's such a negative way to enter a relationship, because I don't want to be around somebody for 15 years that I feel like trapped me, or look at my kids and feel like, man, look at these motherfuckers keeping me here. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's such a negative way to look at something, and I wouldn't want the people in my life to experience my attitude like that. I don't want my wife feeling like, every day I come home to my jailer. You know what I'm saying? I definitely wouldn't want, if I had kids, I wouldn't want my kids looking at me like, oh, he only here because he can't do nothing better. Like, that's such a bad way to look at things. So I think, you know, that's why we look at it that way. It's just society's always telling us what we gave up to get married when it really shouldn't be viewed that way.
Hey, Taurus, you got anything to add to that, bro?
Yeah. For me, I think that the primary reason is because the energy where the information is given off is always in such a negative tone. If you realize around the time of your wedding, while I kept starting, you did that. That change is going to come. I think that as men, we need to talk more positively about what we need to do to handle that change. But you, just like most other men, a lot of the guys that we talk to at the job or at school or at work and all those things, is really just glorified locker room talk. And nobody wants to really express the pain or even the difficulty that they had to encounter during those changes. But those changes come, no matter how perfect of a woman or a man, or even a man that you are. Those changes are coming, and you don't anticipate them. They just happen to you, especially as you get older. When you get older, things happen to you, and they don't ask your permission. So I think one of the best things that we can do is begin to stop giving off that information, because it is true. Stop giving that information off with a negative connotation, because it's not negative per se. It's true, but we give it off in such a negative connotation because we don't really want to address the pain that it costs us, or the pain that we encounter, or even not really knowing how to handle this new woman that you're dealing with, and she's different than she was last week. That's a difficult thing to assess in your life, and it's very difficult for men to sit around and talk about that squarely from the bottom of their hearts about the changes that we go through, just trying to adapt and trying to, as Chris Rock say, keep this woman happy,
Yeah, man. Yeah, and it's funny, man, because like I said, like I was getting, in the lead up before we went to New Orleans for the wedding and everything, I was getting this constant drumbeat like, hey, man, you can always walk away, man. Don't do it, don't do it. And it was always funny because it was always the dudes like that were married, and all these married dudes are telling me don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, and it's like, well, damn, dude, why did you do it, right? And then and then on top of that, like now it's just like, okay, you've done it, you part of the club. It's like, well, did the change happen yet? It's like, nah, dude, I told you it wasn't going to happen. But even still, like the change, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's almost like I don't know how I could put it. It's kind of like a hazing thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Guys just kind of like, just like this hazing process of like, well, he's about to join this club. We might need to kind of fuck with him a little bit and say that this shit is going to be messed up and everything else. And then when you get there, you kind of realize it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And that's just kind of how like dudes socialize with one another. We just kind of like fuck with it in certain ways.
Right.
Like it's sort of like in the way that in some ways, like your boys will, like, if he's complimenting you, he's giving you this backwards ass compliment, like, hey, that's an ugly ass shirt you got on, but where did you get it from? So I can go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like it's funny how that works out. But oh man,
and a lot of us haven't addressed that. A lot of us haven't addressed that, even how we socialize with each other through expressing difficulty while still encouraging each other. As you know, hey, what's the cool thing to do? Hey, how I show you love? That's still kind of prevalent, no matter how enlightened you get. That same is kind of prevalent as we get older, because you realize it's all the same talk as we used to have in the locker room when we were 12, 13 years old. We're just 30-year-olds having it now on a larger scale, because we haven't really come together on how we should warn each other at the same time encouraging each other in the same conversation.
Mm-hmm. Spann, you on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay. I don't know how the hell I
Yep.
did. Another question that I had for you guys, man, was like, because you guys have been married for a while, and the changes that that kind of go with the years and the relationship. How has your relationship, if at all, how has it changed with your wife over the years? I'll let you go ahead first, Rod.
For me, man, I don't know, man. I feel like I watched her kind of grow a lot, and we watched each other grow. Like, Karen's the main reason that we have our own business. She's the main reason we can do this podcast for a living. She is the person that when I lost my job the second time, that was like, this is your opportunity to gamble on yourself. And she was absolutely right. I think that was a huge that's been something that she fostered in me. And for her, I think I've done my best to support her and let her kind of be free and be the woman that she is, and be the outspoken woman that that people know her to be on the podcast. I remember when we started the show, she said, if you wanna get another person to be your co-host, just let me know. And I was like, why would I do that? I got you. And she's like, well, because if I might not be good, I was like, how could you not be, right? So watching her blossom into that kind of person and become like a very outspoken woman about certain things that people find taboo or people find like kind of scary to talk about. It's just been an awesome journey. So I would say
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Rod, I think Rod just cut out.
Okay.
Hold on, let's see what's going on here. Yeah, I think Rod just got cut off in the middle of his point.
He was making a really good point.
Yeah, he was making a really good point. I think he just got cut off right in the middle of his point. But go ahead, Taurus. I know you had something to say about that. We'll let Rod finish his point if he's able to get back in.
Oh, well, the thing I want to say about that is just I actually had the privilege of watching my wife turn into a woman, and I've had the privilege of missing some of the steps. So I think one thing about my marriage has kind of taught me to slow down a little bit. If you know me as a person, I'm pretty fast paced. I want to do everything right now, and I've had to learn to just kind of slow down. Tomorrow's gonna be there, you know what I mean? And also I was who's not necessarily always on the same pace as me. So a lot of times you have to just I learned to slow down.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and you know what? I can say for me, I think that one of the things that I know I love about my wife is the fact that I know she'll cut into me, right? I think that's one of the things that I've learned that I know that I love about her is that no matter what, I know a lot of folks tend to think that I think I know everything. So, there's a lot of times when me and my wife, we're sitting around and we're having conversations where she'll give me a perspective that I hadn't thought of. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at it and I know I've got my points lined up and I'm sure about this. And then she'll hit me with something that's like, well, damn, I didn't even think about that. And then there are also times where she's like, yeah, and then she'll just like kind of cut into me. She'll call me a chunky motherfucker when I want to eat an extra piece of cake or something. Like she'll just go ahead and she'll do that. And I love that about her because she's not afraid to speak her mind. And I don't ever want her to change that. I always want her to feel free to express herself in any way imaginable. And it's always good when, like, I don't know why, but I like it's like this twisted thing of like I love the fact that she will cut into me whenever needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. But I know I may have asked you this question once before, man, but I want to kind of reiterate this this idea. You and your wife, you guys run a business together. How has that business and running that together affected your relationship, if at all?
Well, that's one of the things that we early on in the game, or maybe around 2008, we just made a vow not to discuss that at home. Don't discuss it at home. You can deal with the office, of course things happen and carrying over, but still fixable once you get home. I would advise that for anybody that has went into business together and worked together.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, I think we kind of run through all of our questions here, though. But before we get out of here, brother, let the people know how they can get in touch with you over at Taurus Protection Agency.
Okay. Well, our office is located 2745 Mount Zion Road, Jonesboro, Georgia, 30236. Our website is www.taurusprotection.com. You can reach us by telephone 770-960-6077. If you want to email us, you can reach us by email services@taurusprotection.com.
Indeed, man. And check them brothers. Check them out, man. Real talk. If you need any security in the Atlanta area, man, please believe. Check out my boy and get yourself protected. Real talk. Real talk. We was going. He was. I'm gonna tell this story real quick, man. When we was in New Orleans, me, him, and my guy Cliff, man, and Taurus is like, "Yo, man, if it's just two of them, don't worry about it. I got them." Head off to the side, man. That way, if we know it's some more guys, they won't know it's more than it's just the three of us here. So, yeah, man. My boy can kind of get out. You know what I'm saying? Rod, you back? We back, man.
My internet went out, dog, in the middle of my answer. So I
know, man. That's why I wasn't even tripping, because you guys have been dealing with that issue. But
hey, listen, please give him the chance to finish what he was saying.
I will. I
really get that
opportunity to do that. You were making a point, Rod. Go right on ahead and get back into it.
Let's see. What was I saying? I can't even remember where I was at, man.
We were talking about what was it? Which one of these questions was it?
Oh, well, I do remember. Oh yeah, about us growing together, like how she became kind of a much stronger woman and outspoken about certain things that are kind of taboo for women. You know what I mean? Because and things that matter. A lot of women look up to Karen now, and I remember when she was almost too shy to do the podcast with me. And also I remember we had a discussion about not having kids. Like, that's a pretty bold thing for a woman to say in 2015, even, like to be like, yeah, I don't think I want to have kids. And, and I agree, for me, I was like, I agree. Like, I'm cool with that. We weren't making the moves to do that anyway. Mm-hmm. So it made sense for us both to be like, well, maybe let's look at why we don't want to do this, which is a tough conversation to have because, you want to let the person know I love you and I'm not rejecting a future with you. But at the same time, this is one of those pressures that we don't want to put on ourselves. So like changes like that, I didn't know that at 16. Right. You know what I mean? I didn't know that at 24. So it's things like that where you grow together, you grow apart, and you bring out the best in each other. Hopefully if things are working right, like I said, wouldn't even be we wouldn't be business owners if it wasn't for Karen believing in me. So that it's stuff like that you have to really give credit to each other for.
Yeah. And it was funny because right when you cut out, I was asking Taurus, and it was a question that I had kind of brought up before about the fact that you guys are business owners together and how that affects your relationship with one another, having that business and running that together, how that affects your relationship. How has that, you guys running a podcast, like I know that has brought you guys together in a way that a lot of folks don't.
Right. Yeah, it's always funny because when we go out in public, we'll play on our phones or read books or something, and people come up to us and they're like, "You guys really need to talk to each other, okay?" Like, if you know what we did for a living, we talk to each other several hours a day, every day. Like, we talk to each other probably more than any married couple . professionally and unprofessionally, right? But yeah, I just think it's funny though because doing the show together and having a business together, for us, I feel like it's been kind of easy as far as managing like egos and who does what and stuff. Like we don't get into because all the money goes to the same place. You know what I'm saying? The only thing I got is I don't want the IRS knocking on my door, so we make sure we get all our accounting stuff correct, and that's really the only stuff I worry about. But as far as like the company, we got it 50-50. Like I handle like some of the books and financial stuff because that's I have more time to do it. But we're in a situation where we both trust each other, so we don't have some worries that I think other couples might have. And also because keep in mind we've been together so long, we don't approach this with what's mine and what's yours. So I think if you've been single for a while, it only makes sense that you would protect yourself, especially if you're a woman. Like you want to protect your own interests too, where it's like, in case this nigga start tripping, you know what I'm saying? Like I can make sure that I'm okay, whereas with us, it's just kind of like we're both on this plan where it's like if this shit don't work out, we both gonna be messed up. So we might as well go all in together. So we kind of trust each other implicitly like that. But so I don't think we have the same trips that somebody else might have with their business, because I feel like if I had worked, say, 15 years and had a business by myself, and then Karen came along, I'd probably be like, hold up now, player. You know what I'm saying? This is mine. So it's a totally different attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Like just kind of speaking a little bit on the relationship that me and my wife have is, one of the biggest things that I always wanted her to know was, I wanted her to have that sense of security, right? So like when she moved in, I wanted her to like kind of take ownership of what was here. Like this isn't just mine, this is yours too. So like you can go to the leasing office and go pick up the mail, or if we got any packages or something like that, go ahead and get that, baby, because that's yours too. You know what I'm saying? Like, like even so much as, hey, I might need you to go ahead and take care of that bill real quick because I'm at work and I can't do it while I'm out here. Baby, could you do that for me? And I always wanted to kind of foster that sense of security for her so that, she didn't have those kind of worries. You know what I mean? Especially because we weren't married, and I was looking towards that. I was thinking about, marriage and everything, even before I think she thought I was. I was, you know what I mean? Like, it was funny because I spoke with her father a year before we got married, and I told her father, I asked her father for permission, right? And that was a real good conversation because me and her father were kind of like walking around New Orleans, and we hit about 5 or 6 bars. He was taking me on like a tour of his spots in New Orleans, and we were kind of going through that, and I told him, I said, look, man, like my intentions are pure. Like, that was the thing. It was like my intentions are pure. I want to make this right, but at the same time, just fostering that sense of security for her to where she didn't feel like she was just here.
Right.
And at any point in time, if I got upset, that she could just be gone. I never wanted her to feel like that. And so,
what's funny about that, man? I know a dude I was talking to another day. He was like, man, he was like, whenever I'm on my laptop, your girl comes over, I just make sure that if she need to use a laptop, she got her own little setup. She got to log in for herself and stuff. I was like, yeah, I just hand my wife the laptop if she need to do something on it. He was like, she don't got to have her own password. I was like, dude, this is the person that's the arbiter of like my will. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like if I die, this is the person that decides, or if I'm sick, this is the person that decides if they pull the plug or not. Like I'm past the, like, oh, don't pick up my phone, I pick up my phone myself, and like I'm past that shit. Like I'm still on that, 13 years into this relationship, into this marriage. I mean, like, then what's the point of us being together? I'm tripping already. I'm setting you up for a fall.
Yeah, man, it's just kind of weird how, like, again, and that kind of goes into how dudes look at, I guess, not only just marriages, but just monogamous relationships, period, to where they feel like they're giving something up, as opposed to, I guess, gaining a valuable relationship that they can carry on for the rest of their lives. I think a lot of dudes just flat out look at it like, what am I giving up in order to be in this situation? Like, am I giving up, I got to pay more in, like, benefits at work? They're going to be taking more out of my benefits at work. Do I got child support? Not even just child support, but now I got these kids to take care of and everything else. Like, and it was funny when I was single, and like in the job that I have now, was one of the things I always noticed. I was like, all the married dudes are always here. Like, they never were at home. And at first I was wondering whether or not it was a combination of they don't like their wife, or was it that they're here because they gotta afford their wife. Like, it was just like a weird kind of thing. Like, they're always at work. They never wanted to be at home. But yeah, Rod. Go ahead. I think we're coming up on the end of the show, man. But I would like for you to go ahead and tell everybody how to get in touch with you guys over at the Black Guy Who Tips. Really good podcast, man. One of my favorite podcasts. Go ahead and tell people how to get in touch with you, brother.
Okay. If you want to come see more and hear more about my marriage, go to theblackguywhotips.com, or you can go on iTunes and search The Black Guy Who Tips. It's a podcast that my wife and I do together 5 days a week. The motto of the show is nothing's wrong if it's funny. And, we put it to the test every day, man. Yeah, it's funny too, because like I said, this name, The Black Guy Who Tips, because Karen wasn't even sure she wanted her name on it, y'all. That's like, now nobody can imagine the show without her. So, like I said, people change, and you get to watch us change a little bit every day through the podcast.
Indeed, man, indeed. Yeah, man, we got to get out of here. But of course, before we get out of here, I got to remind you guys how to get in touch with me here at the Spann Report Podcast and let your voice be heard. Hit me up at the hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave me those voicemail messages. I will play them and I will read them. I will respond to them here on the show. You can also email the show at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Leave me those emails. I will read those emails and reply to those emails here as well. Chop it up with your boy on Twitter and Instagram throughout the week. My name on both of those platforms, of course, is Mr._Spann. You can also leave me iTunes and Stitcher radio reviews. Leave me a 5-star review, preferably, and I will read those reviews here on the show. And for all of your Spann Report needs, go to thespannreport.com. And everything's available there. All of the podcasts, all of the videos to the podcast, everything is available at thespannreport.com. I want to thank Rod from the Black Guy Who Tips, and I also want to thank Taurus for joining me here tonight to talk about men and marriage, man. I really do appreciate you, brothers, man. Real talk.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. And until next time, fam. Peace.